Weed Snackers, Scott here from Weed Snacks, and we have a very, very special guest today. We have Emmy Award-winning writer, producer, director, Tom Sanchez. Tom Schnauz, dear old friend of mine, one of the most talented men working in Hollywood. He's the creator, well, he worked on The X-Files as a writer, and he's also one of the co-creators of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It's a pleasure to have him here with us today. Tom, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. So good, man.
Very cool. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you, Tom. There's a couple, just quick things. Let's start off with let's just talk about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Tell me something right away. I'm really interested in this story. Now, I heard this is coming secondhand, so I wanted to hear from you for all your fans here in Albuquerque. How did the show start? There's this rumor I heard from a mutual friend that the original idea for Breaking Bad started with you. You had this idea, and then you gave it to Vince, and then he said, "Can I write a pilot with that?" That's not what happened. Okay, so clear up the lies, please.
Vince and I, this is post X-Files. Neither one of us were working. We were just talking on the phone. It's like an hour-long conversation that went everywhere. And I brought up a New York Times article I had read about this guy who was cooking meth in a building and had gotten the kids in the apartment above him sick from the fumes. And like that friggin' asshole, that dirtbag, cooking meth in a building, and two old men is complaining about somebody else. And eventually somehow the conversation got back around to, we're out of work, we need to make some money. Hey, why don't we start cooking meth in a like a Mr. Softy van driving around, doling out meth to people in a mobile ice cream truck, just as a joke, just gallows humor about how we can make some extra cash. A week later, we ended our conversation. A week later, Vince then called back saying, "Remember that thing we were talking about the meth that I had?" I was like, "What? I don't know what you're talking about."
The
He's
Mr.
like,
Softy thing. What?
yeah. I was like, mind if I run with that? I was like, whatever. I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about. What idea you're going to come up with about that conversation? So it was really just I was involved in a conversation with Vince that sparked an idea with him, that he came up with this thing about a man in his going through a midlife crisis, needing to cook meth to leave money for his family. So that was my involvement in a very indirect way in Vince getting off on this story idea. That he then went off, and about a year later, he had a script that I read. I was like, wow, this is amazing, amazing. So I really had very little to do with him coming up with the idea for Breaking Bad.
Tom, you're not doing the Hollywood thing. You got to say it was all my idea, and
it was
stole it from me.
It was all me. That fucker, Vince Gilligan, he owes me. I want restitution.
Never liked that Vince guy. No. That's great, though. I have a question. This came from one of the staff here at Weed Snacks. They wanted to know, why was Rio Rancho High chosen as the high school? Was it just random, or was there a specific reason why you chose that high school here in Albuquerque?
I don't know. I wasn't there in season 1. I only joined Bad in season 3 because I was on a show called. I actually got the offer for Breaking Bad and a show called Reaper at the same time.
Well, Reaper was. I was going to talk to you about that. One of the great underrated shows. But go on. I won't interrupt.
So two offers at once never happens in a writer's career. And at the time, Reaper was picked up and going. Breaking Bad was not. I called Vince, said, "I want to work with you. What should I do?" And he didn't think Breaking Bad was going to get picked up. So I took the Reaper job. A week later, Breaking Bad was picked up. I had already accepted the offer. Glad I did. I met a lot of great people at Reaper, a lot of great actors, Ray Wise, etc., Tyler Labine. So glad I took that job. Would have been cool to be on Breaking Bad from the beginning, but I got to join in season 3 anyway after Reaper was canceled.
Yeah, well, that's when it got really good. So when you joined. Now, one thing I do want to give a plug to Reaper. If people are not familiar with Reaper, it's a great show, and I truly enjoyed it. It's one of the better supernatural comedies. It was very edgy and funny and original. It was a great show. So if you get a chance, if you go to Hulu or another place where you can find it, check out Reaper. It's a great show. It died too soon because it was fantastic.
Michelle Michelle Fazekas and Tara Butters created the show, and they're good friends of mine. I love them, and yeah, it was a fun show to work on. It was definitely a great supernatural comedy, which you don't see a lot of. And again,
I
Ray
have a
Wise,
question.
Twin Peaks fans in out
Yes.
there. Ray Wise plays the devil. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's one of the best devils around. He's that's how I imagine the devil being, just like him. If the devil was my father, that was a great show. Well, getting back to Breaking Bad, we had another from the Peanut Gallery here at We's Next Question. They wanted to know about the Fly episode. They wanted to know if you personally found that episode just a filler waste of time, or was it exactly what you guys wanted? Because I mean, I like that episode a lot, but it does end up on a lot of lists, and for most annoying, or what's your thoughts on that episode? I
That was one.
personally enjoyed it.
That was one of the first ones. My dad called me up. He would call me up after episodes, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know about that episode." But no, it wasn't. No, never considered any episode we did to be filler. It was certainly thought of as a bottle episode because we were way over budget on a lot of other episodes. So we thought, let's do an episode that we can primarily film on stage in our laboratory set. So that's where the idea sort of came from of what would go on. Why would we spend a whole day or whole episode on the one set? And it was about Walt sort of losing his grip with reality a little bit. And no, I didn't consider it a filler episode. I end up liking it very much. So I think yeah, I think I agree with people who put it on their top 10 lists.
Oh, good. I do too. Because I had a fly that was bugging the crap out of me yesterday, and I literally was thinking of that episode. And then I came in today, and Logan, who works here, was like, "Can you ask him about the fly episode?" I said, "Yes, yes, I will ask that question because I'm just like Walter White. I get very annoyed by flies and get obsessed with them as well. So I appreciate it. So I have a question. This is a question for you. When you guys are doing the show, and you're trying to plan out the season. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of this. A lot of people think that every single element of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad was planned out ahead of time. When you started a season, you had it all figured out. Not quite true, right? Could you explain that to our viewers? What actually happens? Was not everything was planned. Sometimes you planted something and then came up over the season how to pay it off. Could you talk about that a little bit, Tom?
That's right. I mean, we would meet at the beginning of a season as a group of writers and talk about big ideas. What could happen? Where could we go? We put like Gus blowing up, uh, Hector blowing up Gus Fring was an idea that was actually kind of talked about in season 3 before we used it at the end of season 4. And so it was just we write these ideas on cards and put them up on the cork boards. And a lot of ideas we never did. Just we come up with big things and put it up. And if it's used, great. We'll take it down and plug it in here. It's a great. Oh, we could do. As we're building. Oh, we had this great idea that would fit great here. It's like puzzle pieces. We're putting puzzle pieces together so they fit in a logical way. So we come up with these big ideas and just put them on a board. Then we go back to the beginning and start episode 1 of whatever season we're in, and start at the very beginning and do a method that we call brick by brick, which is we take these index cards, which I have a bunch of, and we write each scene or story beats on these index cards, and we put them up one after another, starting in the teaser. Okay, what's the first image? What's the first thing that happens? What's a great starting point? We'd write it down, put it up on the cork board, and just work from there without even knowing what's going to happen in the next episode. We weren't like building it like, oh, we need to reach this point or that point. We're just like, okay, where's the character's head at? We usually start in Breaking Bad with Walter White because he's our main character. What's his head at? What's he thinking about of what happened last season? What's he thinking about? What's his next move? So we'd start building there. All right, well, what's Jesse Pinkman's? Where's his head at? How does his next move line up or interfere with Walter White? We build from there. And where's Mike? And where's Gus? And we do all these things and we start flow charting each person's mindset of how they interact. And that starts building the story of where it's going. So we were letting the characters take us on a journey instead of saying, oh, Walt needs to shoot Mike or whatever, Walt needs to kill Gus. We need to get there and do that. How do we get there? We didn't say that. We just went along. And if it got to a mindset of that, well, that thing works here, we'll do that. And sometimes we get to a point and get stuck and go, we'll backtrack and say, oh, this is really cool. Well, if we adjust this back here in the beginning of the act one, we can make this change, do this flow chart change. That'll help us get to this really cool ending. So it kind of, we never thought we never built towards, oh, we need to get to this certain ending. We let the characters take us.
That's a really a seminal point, Tom, and I think so many writers need to hear that. I think so much what you see in TVs and movies today feels so contrived, like they're trying to get to this point, and you can tell, and they're making the tail wag the dog to get to this moment, as opposed to letting the story organically flow, what's logical for the character. And
Yeah.
I love, and I think that's what made the show so great. You really felt the truth of the characters the whole time. You never felt like this is why is he doing that? That makes absolutely zero sense because you wanted to have this big fight, you know.
Yeah.
So no, I think that was a brilliant way to approach the show, Tom. That's great.
Yeah. That all started with Vince. Vince is.
We're getting a question from the peanut gallery. Yes.
Somebody's asking what's up with the pizza. Why'd they throw the pizza on
Oh,
the roof?
why did this is the number one? By the way, I get asked this all the time. Why did they throw the pizza on the roof?
I'm surprised your number one question was why wasn't the pizza sliced? I don't know if you look at that episode.
Exactly.
Which was not written into the script. It was just a production. I don't know what I think they thought.
I didn't want to get the prop person in trouble, so I wasn't going to say anything, although it's bothered me for
We
years.
paid it off later in another episode where Jesse's having these wild parties. They order a pizza from the place and they're like, it's not cut. And Badger or somebody says, well, that's the gimmick. They pass the savings on to you by taking away the labor of cutting the pizza. They save however many cents and they pass the savings on to you. Why did he throw the pizza on the roof? He just got frustrated with Skylar. He was trying to ingratiate himself back into the family, and Skylar was like not having any of this. He just, as he walked out, he just flung the pizza. And Bryan Cranston did it on the first take, which was pretty amazing. like I think the director wanted to practice, and Bryan was like, "No, let me just try this." And sure enough, he flinged it, and it landed on the roof, and it was great.
Oh man, Cranston missed his calling as a pizza flinger. I heard this other story about production though, and correct me if I'm wrong about this. The famous episode where they're stuck in the RV and it has no power and they think they're going to die in the desert. Now the inside scoop, as I heard it, was that the network was not giving you guys enough money for the show at that point because it still hadn't blown up quite as big, and so you were on a limited production. So on the limited production, you were stuck in the RV, and that's why and it turned into a brilliant episode. Is that true? Was it a budgetary reason that got you stuck in that RV?
And again, this is season 2 before I joined. Sam Catlin wrote this episode, but I do know about it from talking to the guys and being in the room, that it was developed as another bottle episode to save money. Right. But it became one of the most expensive episodes I think they had ever done.
How did it become so expensive?
I think it was very elaborate. I think it was, if you watch that episode, it's more elaborate than it seems, and a lot of driving out. Even though they shot it like right behind the stages, it was a Michelle McLaren directed episode, and she directed the hell out of it. That's what makes it. Sam's writing and Michelle's directing make it one of the great episodes. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm probably wrong in saying it was one of the most expensive, but it wasn't. It didn't save money.
Right, backfired, but it all worked out great because you made that network so much money. I'm sure they're not complaining. So no, not at all. So I have a question. How much was theme discussed when you were developing, and both shows with Saul and also with Breaking Bad? Did you guys, because to me, I mean, again, I'm probably just talking off my butt cheeks, but to me, the show is always talking about, it really gets into the theme of the slippery slope of evil. How the Cranston starts off, Walter White, Heisenberg starts off, and Saul, Jimmy starts off the same way. You sympathize with them. There's really good concrete reasons why they do the first bad things they do, but then it becomes a cascade of bad decisions. And I'm wondering just if you could maybe just talk a bit about the themes of the show and how much you guys thought consciously about, we're trying to send a message here about evil and corruption. Could you speak to that a little bit, Tom?
Yeah, I think to Vince's credit, we never ever thought about themes or messages or like what message do we want to tell society. It was like, we're just going to tell our story, and whatever people take away from it, great. On the other hand, I mean, Vince came up with a very great idea of, we're going to turn Mr. Chips into Scarface. So in that,
Right.
That pitch, you're talking about what can make a good man corrupt. So yeah, I mean, there's themes. I mean, with Jimmy McGill, we talked about addiction, about him being addicted, and also Kim Wexler in turn being addicted to the con, to the life of
Right.
conning. We always thought of it as an addiction story, but we weren't ever trying to preach any particular angle about, don't, hey, you out there, don't do this or that, or we're planting our flag and saying this about society. There was none of that. We never talked about, oh, we need to send a message to the world. It was just like, we're going to tell the stories of these particular characters, and whatever larger theme people get out of it, great. We weren't sure, and anybody that watches the show and says there's a theme, it's not for us to argue that they're wrong or right. It's, people will watch it and take what they can from it, and hopefully there's some life lesson or whatever they learn. But on one level, yeah, we talked about, for the characters, addiction or corruption or turning evil, but we never thought we're trying to tell society X, Y, or Z.
That's very interesting, and I like that you left it open for the audience interpretation. I watched a whole video the other day, by the way, basically saying the message of Gus Fring and your secret message was that fast food is meth, and it's the same thing. And I remember I was just laughing. I'm like, I really doubt that Tom went through that with Vince.
Okay. We got more questions.
Oh, more questions, more audience questions.
Bring them on, motherfuckers.
What do you got?
What's up with this? So this is a person who knows about filming. Jesse's filming locations were all very close together. The apartment, the house, and the parents' house. Was this an intentional thing that was done? Also, there was a common idolization of Walter White. What do you think about that? That people have idolized Walter White and made him such a common character.
Did you get all that, Tom?
I did, yeah. The filming locations were not intent. I mean, we just liked a location and filmed at it. It was just happenstance that one would be near another. Like Chuck McGill's house actually was like right around the corner from where Jesse's house was, and it was just people were open to letting us film at the houses, and we liked the houses, and we actually in Saul had to sort of bend over backwards sometimes to not get a glimpse of Jesse's house, because
Oh my God.
make it like, oh, they're separate neighborhoods, they're not close to each other. So yeah, just filming locations were not ever meant to be near each other for any reason other than those were the things that were available to us to film in, and our locations managers maybe had a line on we're well known in the neighborhood and had a line on particular homes in a certain area, so that's why we tended to gravitate towards a certain area of Albuquerque as opposed to another. It was all just location dependent, not on purpose. And people who idolize Walter White, I mean, we're told the story of a tragic, flawed character. Yeah, we tried to make him look cool in certain instances where he's facing up against Tuco or whatever situation he was being clever in, but ultimately he was he's a bad guy. In the end, he does a lot of despicable things, and a lot of people get hurt because of his actions. So but people idolize Scarface or whoever. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's a fictional character, so it's you could idolize, as long as you're idolizing a fictional bad guy. So what? I don't care. You can love Dr. Doom or whoever. Whatever bad guys
Right.
you like, that's fine. If you want to idolize Walter White, that's okay with me.
Well, the thing is, Tom, you guys wrote him so well, and sometimes I think this is true of all literature, not just to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, the villain is often more compelling and interesting than the hero because they're complex and flawed in a way I think as we as humans can identify with our own flaws. And I think that's what made, Walter White so interesting. He's so flawed, and we see ourselves in him in weird ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think, and people, when we were writing the episodes, we thought, oh, Skylar White, his wife, is right about so many things, and she's correct. I mean, she was a good person, but people started hating the character because she got in our hero's way, even though he was doing
Right.
hard things. It was they were like, don't get in Walt's way. He's trying to help the family when he really in the end wasn't trying to help the family. So people, it was just an interesting thing to see unfold as they started getting word about how many people like just despise Skylar. Like, wow, it's like she was a force of of quote unquote good in the show, trying to
And reason, yeah.
yeah.
Did you ever have moments when you guys were writing the characters where you're like, we just made him just too despicable, too unlikable, too much of a Philly fan, and we just can't go. It's an inside joke because Tom hates Philly, but have we taken it too far, or did you just look at it at some point? He's Teflon. I mean, he could poison a kid, and people will still want to see the show.
No, it came up a lot. It was like, are we going too far too fast? Is he too bad? And we'd like, well, if people don't like him, then that's the story we're telling, and then they'd still love him. I'm like, it was a fascinating experiment. It was because again, and that's a lot of credit to Bryan Cranston. He just has an appeal that, let's say with Aaron Paul, it's like these guys can do these things, and they're lovable in a way, and so you root for them. So it was a lot of credit to the actors, and also to Vince in the beginning. Once you have this guy with cancer dying, and he has this idea that I want to leave money for my family so they're taken care of, you're on board. It's like you're rooting for them. So you still have that initial seed planted, where even when they start doing the terrible things, and even like, because in another brilliant thing that was done before I got to the show was that their friends Gretchen and Elliot offer to pay for all of Walt's medical expenses.
Remember it
And
well, yes.
so he says, no, I'm going to cook meth. Which is right there, you would think the audience would be like, what the hell is he doing? But no, they for whatever reason, they started understanding that this guy was finally experiencing life for the first time. He was out of his boredom and doldrums and just not living. He was finally brave and facing up to Tuco Salamanca, and standing up and being a man, and being so it was this weird thing, and you got it. You went along for the ride, and it was great.
How much input did the actors, have on the, like, Cranston, and Aaron Paul? How much input did they have on the writing process? Would they come to you as a writing staff and say, I don't see the character doing this, or could you try this? Or did they were completely out of it, just doing their thing and getting the scripts?
Yeah, pretty much. My memory, it's so long ago that my memory is hazy. But I know Brian and Aaron maybe visited while we were visit the room once. And that was it. And everyone, so, a script would come out, and they'd Brian would maybe have an issue of like, oh, I wouldn't say this or that or whatever. We talk about it. But there was no input of like, I think my character should do this or that. During the breaking process, they never influenced us in that way. And since it's more recent, I could talk about Bob Odenkirk. He wanted to read the scripts when they came out and not be surprised and not know what was going to happen. And I think that was the same for Brian and Aaron and the rest of the cast. They just wanted to be surprised and not know where the character was going, so that they could live in the moment. So yeah, they didn't really. They didn't really.
I was going to ask, was there improv on the set, or did you guys stick basically to what was written?
It was all written. There was no very, very little improv. The one moment of improv I can talk about, because it was basically scripted that Bob improvs is that I had a scene in season 5 of Better Call Saul where he's filming these commercials,
Yes,
and
I remember.
there's all these actors, and it was just like, just let Bob go and do whatever
Let
he
Bob be
wants.
Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, let Bob do his thing and just get in there and do funny stuff with the actors. And we just filmed a lot of it and cut it into a montage, and it was great. So that was the only real improv moment that I recall. And again, it was scripted as this because there was nothing as a writer that I was going to come up with that Bob on the set with these different actors he was gonna do great things. So we just let him go. And it was one of the most fun days on set, just sitting behind the monitor with the headphones on, just watching him. Just he's so funny.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here. My favorite episode, of course, would be the one you directed, where the two twins go at Dean Norris in the car. That was a brilliant episode. I really enjoyed it. And my favorite moment.
That was the first one I wrote. I didn't direct it. That's Michelle McLaren.
Oh, you wrote it. Okay. Still my favorite. It was brilliant. A great episode. My favorite moment of Breaking Bad was, it's the most heartbreaking moment is when Walter White watched her die. Just sat there watching her OD. It's so heartbreaking, but it was one of the most brilliant TV moments I've ever seen. It was so raw and emotional. I almost cried myself. What are your favorite moments in your favorite episode? And you can name your own. We'll think none the less of you.
Um, Boy, that's a tough one. Just talking because we're talking about the episode 4 days out, we're in the RV in the desert, and knowing the story about this. Again, it was in a season before I got there. Walt comes up with an idea to save them, and he says, "Jesse, you said it yourself." And he says, "A robot? We're going to build it." They were talking about building. Thinks that's the solution, and that was not scripted. That was an assistant. One of our assistant cameramen came up with that line after they had wrapped,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
so funny and good that they were like, "We got to go back. We got to go back." And they went back and they filmed them saying that exchange, which is it's so funny. That's one of my favorite moments for sure.
Oh, that's great.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to choose. There's a lot of good fun stuff.
I know. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. So I won't push you too far on that level. What was it like? Just recently rewatched the episode that you directed of Better Call Saul, where they came back. What was it like to see them again? Was it just like good old times? And
Yeah, that as far as talk about favorite moments, that was great. I can't even just because it was done under such secrecy, and it was just the planning of because these guys are busy in their own right. They were doing separate things, and just we had a moment in time where they could fly out to Albuquerque secretly together, and we had them for 3 days, or actually 2 days each. They had an overlap on the one day because Brian shot a scene for episode, the final episode, and Aaron shot a scene for the penultimate episode, and they had the overlap for my episode. I had them for a day and a half shooting in the RV, which they reconstructed and had to get all this stuff to try to match the old RV from however many years ago.
it worked. I was like, yeah, look at it. And then you did like the shot of the bullet holes on the door too. Perfect. I'm sure there's people out there measuring them to make sure that it's the exact bullet
They
hole.
got it exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I think they had the basic frame of the RV, but they had to reconstruct a lot of the interior. And it's so funny when you're standing on the set. It's so much bigger than the real RV, and sometimes you notice that on camera. Like this is way bigger than an RV should be.
This switching gears just a little bit from the show. Is the Breaking Bad, well, not switching gears that much, is the Breaking Bad universe over after El Camino and after Better Call Saul? Is it done? Or is there was actually, I got a text this morning from a mutual friend of ours asking if there's going to be a spinoff of the intern Carrie Anderson character. So, so I'm just wondering, are there any plans to do any more with the Breaking Bad universe?
I have not heard anything. I don't, but never say never.
Right.
it could be up if Peter Gould gets an itch to do the Kim Wexler Chronicles, and who knows?
Yeah.
But there are no plans. I don't think Vince is busy with his, or was before the strike, was busy with his new show, and Peter, I know, was not doing anything Breaking Bad or Saul related. So I don't think there will be, but who knows? I don't know. I don't have any inside information on that. All I know is that there's nothing happening now.
But you never know. That phone may ring, and it's like, we need you, buddy. we need some more meth here. So that's good. Let's talk a little bit about what you're working on now. First off, let's just cover, because I know you're involved in it. The strike, the WGA strike. Do you have any comments or thoughts on it? It's been rough, I know, for a lot of writers, and I'm in the union as well. And I've done a lot of, I did some picketing out here, and I shut down some HBO shows for the union. Can you explain to people a little bit about the strike who don't understand and what's at stake? Because a lot of people are like, I just don't get my show, and why?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the way seasons are structured now, that there are not as many episodes in a season, and up and coming writers are finding it very difficult to make a living. That you can't do 10 episodes as a starting writer and then have to scramble and find another job, and probably not to get another job, because getting the job in the first place is hard enough. But then having to go from one to another to just make ends meet for the year is near impossible. So we're talking about paying starting writers enough, getting enough people in a writer's room to do the show, and so that there's enough work to go around, so there's enough staff, and also, just fair compensation for streaming. They keep telling us that there's no way of knowing how many people are watching your show, but then they'll announce, oh, this many people watched whatever show just appeared on Netflix. So they're not showing us the books or showing us the numbers. And that's just part of why the strike is happening. But
I think what a lot of people don't understand, they have this impression that it's millionaire writers fighting millionaire producers. It's not that. It really isn't.
Yeah, no, I was doing, as an executive producer, doing fine, but it's not really about me so much as about the new generation of writers. They're just not they just can't survive on what's being paid to them. So that's, and what, if you look at, if you can find online, the number we're asking for from each studio is like a 0.01. Well, it's such a small fraction of their earnings that they're willing to let everything shut down for such a small percentage of their profits. It's mind-boggling what is happening right now, why they are letting it go on so long. And it's just like some of these, it was like, what do you need to do to be the head of one of these studios? It's like, if your qualification is you can be a troll under a bridge making people's life miserable, yeah, here's your job, guys. Run this network. It's just fucking ridiculous. I'm getting angry now.
Yeah, you're turning red, Tom.
No, it's it's unfathomable that it's gone on as long as it has, and it's in their court now to come back with a counter proposal, and why they haven't yet, I don't know. Well, I mean, I do know, actually. It's because
they want to start people out.
but it's different than the previous strike, which they were on the same page. The group who were covered under the AMPTP. Now there's a different model. Different services have different models, and I don't think they agree.
Yeah, and the studios are on totally different pages.
Amazon, NBC, and ABC and Disney, they want different things, so they amongst themselves can't agree on what to do and come back to us with. So there's this weird, like, I don't know what to do. They're just, I don't think, writers and actors are united about what we want, and they're like, what do we offer? What can we give up?
Yeah. Let's talk about something happier.
Question,
A question coming in.
Did you anticipate Breaking Bad to have the influence it had on the film industry or the culture here in Albuquerque and New Mexico beforehand as a whole, altogether?
No,
Did you get that, Tom?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way. Being in the moment when we were writing the show of having any, because originally people weren't even watching the show. There was very little, and it was.
Right.
I hate to say something nice about Netflix, but I have to. Is thanks to the show Breaking Bad appearing on Netflix that people got to catch up with the show and sort of get into it. So that by the time we were writing season 5, there was a sort of swell of interest of people who were watching it and telling other people, "Oh, you got to watch this." So that at the time it was just like season 4. I didn't even think by the end of season 4 we knew we were going to be picked up. When uh, Walter White kills Gus Fring or Hector Salamanca kills Gus Fring, that could have been the ending right there. It would have been unsatisfying. That in our minds we were like, we didn't know we were coming back, and eventually AMC said, "Yeah, you guys are back, and we're gonna do one." It was decided by Vince. It's like, we'll do one more. We can finish this out in one season, tell the Walter White story. So no, we didn't really know what the impact on filmmaking, television, or Albuquerque. It was just like we loved working in Albuquerque on both shows. It was such a blast.
We got 2 minutes, Tom, and this is a very important question. I really wanted to ask you before we wrap up. Tell us a little bit about, I know the strike is interrupting some of what you're doing, but I wanted you to talk about Gen V and some of the things you're doing. You were working on the Boys spinoff before the strike. Is that still on for you? Because I'm dying to see your new stuff. So tell us what your new stuff is and what you're doing, besides the weed snacks film you're going to make for us. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Go ahead.
There is a spinoff of The Boys called Gen V. Before I joined the staff for season 2, they already shot season 1. Season 1 is actually supposed to come out this month. I think later this month, or actually a week or pretty soon. Gen V will be on Amazon. I had nothing to do with season 1, but we were just with Michelle Fazekas, who I worked with on Reaper, asked me to join the staff, and I wanted to work with her again. So I had joined. So we were only worked for about 2 months on season 2 before the strike happened. So you're not going to get to see any new work from me, but you will get to see work from Eric Kripke and Michelle Fazekas and Tyra Butters in this new show called Gen V, which works in the Boys timeline.
I'm a big fan of the Boys. So I was so excited to see when the strike ends, are we going to see you? Are you still on board with the show?
I hope so. I was slated to write and direct an episode in the new season, but I really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, hopefully, knock on wood, that Amazon says, yeah, continue the show or whatever. But I really have no idea what's going to happen with anything anywhere. They could cancel deals. They could say, Tom Schnauz, you're too expensive to work on the show. We'll kick you out. Who knows what it could be? I have zero idea. So it'd be great to go back and work on it, but I don't know even if they're going to pick up a season 2 now.
Final quick question, because we have less than a minute. Since you've been in New Mexico and Albuquerque, I'm going to put you on the spot. Red, green, or Christmas?
I can't do anything hot. Scott, you made a dinner for me. You were like, you remember that test dinner you made that you were going to cook for your parents? And I came over to the place, your apartment, and you cooked this dinner. It was so hot it made my nose bleed.
Yeah, that's because you're a white boy, Tom.
Yeah, so I'm a mild sauce.
And Tom, that was great. Thank you so much for your time and going through so much about your show and your creative process. It's been an absolute pleasure. One thing I didn't get to ask you about, and I wanted to so bad, was to ask you about Mickey Dolitz and the Monkees. And are you still hanging out with Mickey these days?
I haven't seen him in a while, but I'm actually going to go see his show. He's doing the Monkees album Headquarters in its entirety. I can't remember where he's playing it, but in a week or two, I'm going to go see that show.
Oh, that's great. Well, Tom, thank you for being our guest here at We Snacks. Like I said, we'd love to have you back again anytime. You have an open invitation. And if you're ever in Albuquerque, let us know. We're going to take you to Sadie's or someplace cool so we can, give you a big colon blow, make your nose bleed again, something fun. But you look great. And, it's been wonderful having you. One of the best writers, in my opinion, the best writer in Hollywood here for an exclusive interview. It's been great.
You're a sweetheart, man. Well, it's so good seeing you. I missed you. I'd love to come to Albuquerque again very soon.
Very cool, Tom. Well, take care and best of luck with all your endeavors. And hopefully the bullshit ends soon, and we're all back to working and entertaining people and doing creative stuff.
It would be great. It would be great.
All right, Tom. You take care, and I will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
All right, take care. All right, bye-bye.